السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين وفي الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين، وعن ملائكة المقربين وعن أنبياء الله أجمعين، وعن شهداء والصديقين والصالحين، وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Jazakumullah khair. I feel really honored to be in Durban. One of the things that we need to realize that Al-Yawm al-Jumu'ah is a very special day. And the Prophet ﷺ informed us to recite Surah Al-Kahf on the Yawm al-Jumu'ah as a protection from the Dajjal. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the biggest fitna that will come between my ba'ath, my arrival, and the Yawm al-Qiyamah is the fitna of the Dajjal. And the Prophet ﷺ informed the Sahaba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had imprisoned the Dajjal on an island in the ocean, and he had with him an animal called the Jassasa. And the animal, the Jassasa, could speak Arabic. And the Dajjal was shackled in chains. And when these chains break, the Dajjal will be released and he will claim prophecy, first and foremost. He will claim prophecy. He will go to people. He will cause the rain to come down with his hand. He will cause the trees to grow with his hand. He will even cause the dead to come back to life. But it will be the jinn. And they will come and they will say, هَذَا رَبُّكُمْ. This is your Lord. This is the Lord of creation. And so this is a big fitna. And he will deceive millions upon millions of people, and they will enter Jahannam on his hands. Sayyidina Tamim al-Dari radiallahu anhu was one of the Sahaba. Before he became a Muslim, and this is how he became a Muslim, he was on his boat, and a few others were with him, and the ship or the boat got shipwrecked, and they were pushed to shore on an island, and on this island they found this Jassasa, this animal. And the animal, they were amazed to see this animal speaking to them. And the animal said, هَلْ أَنْتُم مِّنَ الْعَرَبِ. Are you from the Arabs? And they said, Naam, we from the Arabs. And the animal said, there's a person on this island who wants to meet anyone from the Arabs. And so the animal took them to him. And then they saw the Dajjal, one-eyed with shackles. And the Dajjal asked them, هل ظهر النبي القرشي الهاشمي في المكة? Has the Qurashi Hashimi prophet manifested or appeared in Mecca yet? And they said yes, but now he's in Medina. And the Dajjal said that now my time is close to for my release. And they listened to the Dajjal, and he prophesied many things that were still to happen. And remember, this was before they even converted to Islam. And he spoke about the Baysan, palm trees, and all these things. And the Jassasa, he allowed them he showed them the way to go back into a ship that would go back to Arabia. And when they came to Medina, they told the Prophet ﷺ about this, and they accepted Islam on that note. Now, the reason why Surah Al-Kahf is such an important protection from the Dajjal is because it provides a map of the world that we live in today, the age of the Dajjal. And this is particularly important for the youth. I mean, everyone's a youth, but particularly important because it's always the youth who are the transformative element within society. The Prophet ﷺ said, Nasrani ash-shabab, that the youth gave me victory and the elders belied me. Because the elders in a community, and I'm sure that even in this community, in my community in Cape Town, they don't like change, isn't it? When something new happens in the mosque, I don't want to see that. And that's fine. That's the nature of the elderly. But what is the problem today? It's adab. And the definition of adab, وَضْعُ شَيْءٍ فِي مَحَلِّهِ, to put a thing in its correct place. لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَرْحَمْ صَغِيرَنَا وَلَا يَقِرْ كَبِيرَنَا. He's not from amongst us. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said. He's not from my ummah if you don't have mercy for the youth, for the youngest, and you don't respect the elderly. That is the first point, everyone. That is our point of departure. Adab. If you don't have adab, you have nothing, right? غير adab, right? And so that is the first point, as youth. And Surah Al-Kahf speaks about إِذَا الْفِتْيَةُ فَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا ربنا هب لنا من لدنك رحمة هيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. They talk about this, the Ashabul Kahf, right? These sleepers in the cave, and they were youth in a society that were against their culture, that was against their beliefs and their values, and that's what we find nowadays. The girls, they don't want to really wear hijab anymore. Why? Because they're going to these universities, and these universities are totally against the understanding of what modesty is, and so they see all these ideologies, and that's why they want to leave Islam. And so many. And I'm going to quote the statistics of people that have left Islam, and the youth that are engaged in all of these fasad that we commonly know. But Surah Al-Kahf is important because it gives us an understanding of the age we live in. And while many people feel alienated from Islam as a result of the crushing influences of all these foreign ideologies and worldviews of the West, few people gain a deep understanding of both Al-Islam and the world that we live in order to provide the responses. And that's what we need to do as people and as youth. And the age of the Dajjal has 4 main points, and we can see this everywhere. The first point is division. The essence of a community is the family. Nowadays, more than 50% of people that get married are divorced. There's division amongst the family, division in the society, there's even interpersonal division. Schizophrenia has become a major phenomenon in the world that we live in today. There's division everywhere. And also there's this sectarianism that goes on, and we need to address this. Why? Because it affects us. And what is our worldview? Who are we? Are we contributors to this division, or are we actually helping to build that? And we want to be revolutionaries, right? But what does that mean? When they speak about the fees must fall protest, which I'm at UCT, what do they speak about? Are we just going to break down everything? What are we going to replace it with? Revolutionaries can't build what they usually can so easily destroy. And so this notion that 500 million Shias are kafir, which is a big problem, and this is an important topic, that is contrary to what we were taught. The principles of rahmah, of tolerance, that is what we are. And that's why all the responses that we get with regards to modernity, you have the Reformation, these people that are hardliners, and we see that, and there's no finger pointing, but what do we call for? Go back to the Quran and Sunnah. Yes, we do that, but we can't bypass 1,400 years. Or other people who say that if this hadith or Quran doesn't comply with modern science, then we have to reject it. Who do we trust? That is the question. And so these people is not a small fringe of Muslims that we can just label kafir. We need to go back to an understanding of what does it mean to be a Muslim, and these intellectual frameworks that we come with. The second, after division, the second point of the age of the Dajjal is deception. What is seen as healthy is actually lethal. What is seen as comfortable is causing anxiety. The highest, biggest celebrities in the world are the scum of the earth. There's a deception of what is claimed to be amazing, and that's the Dajjal, isn't it? He shows you Jannah in his one hand, but it's actually Jahannam. And if you do that, that's why millions of people will go to Jahannam on his hand. That's the second point. The third point is argumentation, a big problem. And the Rasul ﷺ said that whoever takes a system other than my Sunnah as their guide, they will be in argumentation till the Yawm al-Qiyamah. What do we have nowadays? Nationalism. I'm Pakistani, I'm Indian, I'm Malay. Nationalism, South African. It used to be you could go to Mecca just because you're Muslim. Now there's border control, all of these things. You couldn't, like in Syria, there's so many different lines there. And so, what are we fundamentally? What is that division within ourselves fundamentally? So argumentation, if you can argue, you can win something. The quickest way to make money, seriously, is to leave Islam and to write a book about it. Become famous and you can get money like that. The fourth point, after division, deception, and argumentation, is inversion. There's an inversion of the reality of things. In the majalis of the Prophet ﷺ, they didn't need light bulbs. They saw with the nur of the qalb. right? But now we need that in order to see. And so there's an inversion. When I ask, if you want to know who your sheikh is, and you ask him, Ya sheikh, who is Rasulullah? And he tells you, he had so many children, he is this beautiful, all these things. I didn't ask about him, I asked who he is. And if you know him, introduce me to him. They say, lisanul hal afsah min lisan al-maqal. That the state of the tongue of one's state, how am I connected to Allah and the Prophet ﷺ, is more eloquent than what I'm saying. We have many people who speak, but do you know Allah truly? So there's an inversion, and so these are the 4 points. But what Surah Al-Kahf does is that it shows you the solution also, not simply the problem. Because many a time people say, oh, that's a problem in society, that's a problem. But what is the solution? And the ulama, they are called the Ahlul Halli wal Aqd. They're people who can yatahallal, can take away untie a problem, but they can also provide a solution. And the solution in Surah Al-Kahf that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides us is dhikrullah. But it's not simply talking about dhikrullah, it's the action of dhikrullah. And we need to be people of dhikr, because that is the transformation within the self. And dhikrullah, the aim of dhikrullah is ma'rifatullah. And the way to get there, the purpose of dhikrullah is tazkiyah. That from the dhikr that you continuously do within yourself, with meaning, you purify the self. Because every prophet came to purify the nafs, psychology, all of these things. These are ways to purify the self. But there's different philosophies that we need to look at. There's a difference between al-ilm, sacred knowledge, and secular knowledge. What is the difference? Islam is not against scientific knowledge. Because our worldview is we get knowledge through our senses, our 5 senses, our reason to capacity, our aql, and also the wahi. What science does is just the empirical 5 senses part of that. So we accept that. But a secular worldview is something that, let's remove Allah, or let's put Allah there, but He's only the initiator and now we're independent of God. And there's an interesting story. Some of these secularists, they meet God, and they told God, we found a way to actually theorize about how life can come about without you. And God asked, how did you do that? He said, first we get some cosmic dust, and then God says, no, get your own dust, because they forget where it all comes from. And so the solution to the age that we're living is dhikr. وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ إِذَا نَسِيتَ. Remember your Lord when you forget. What are you forgetting? نَسَى اللَّهُ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. They forgot Allah, and so Allah caused them to forget themselves. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. They are the ones who are busy with transgressing. And there's another ayah, نَسَى اللَّهُ فَنَسِيَهُمْ. They forgot Allah, so Allah forgot them in a way that is suitable to Allah, which means He abandoned them. And we need Allah in every moment. The second ayah, after dhikr with oneself, right? The Quran, faraid salah, these are important things. And we must forget that the fard salah is not the only thing that is fard upon us. Justice is fard. The rights of your wife, the rights of your neighbor, these are faraid in Islam. Don't think you're a wali if you're good to your wife. That's good, but it's a fard. And after that, the nawafil comes. And that's when, wilaya comes. And all of these people, Bad Shapir, all these people, and I visited them, Sufi Saban in Cape Town, Sayyid Abdul Latif Kazi, they were all people not only of ilm and dhikr, but also social justice. They went in, they fed people, right? That is the way to become a wali, is really that. And I'll speak a little bit about that as well. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريدون زينة الحياة الدنيا ولا تطع من أغفلنا قلبه عن ذكرنا واتبع هواه وكان أمره فرطا. That the solution it also gives is hold fast to people who make dhikr, who call upon Allah in the night and the day, and they don't seek anything but the pleasure of Allah. This is what I'm not talking only to the elderly. This is specifically for the youth. This is what the Ashab al-Kahf did. Those youth, those very young youth, and they went into this cave. Why did they go to a cave? Because they sought spirituality. Buddha, Confucius, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they all went to caves to get enlightened through kana yatahannath. He went to receive the reality of things, and through that he was given the dhikr of Allah and the ilm of Allah. And don't follow, the ayah says, don't follow those who we cause his heart to sway away from the dhikr of Allah. And I'm talking about dhikr as in the halaqat dhikr, and there are and there's numerous evidences for this in Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. And I don't want to go into this because that necessarily has never been a problem. He said that you know that the salah had finished when he would walk outside the masjid and hearing halaqat dhikr making loud dhikr in the masjid. So that's something we don't need to speak about. But really the solution is to hold fast to these people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. Remember me because I remember you. Is that because I'm a Muslim? Allah says, remember me, I remember you. It's not remember me and I will remember me. It's remember you. It's remember me because I remember you. Now, I want to ask you a question. Can you remember something that didn't happen to you? Do you remember the time we went to Australia together? Remember, udhkur, right? You can't remember something that didn't happen to you. So the idea that we must remember something is that it happened to us. Alastu bi rabbikum. We remember that moment. But is that because I'm a Muslim? No. Now tell me, does this mic remember Allah? It has to. It has its own tasbih. لا يفقهون تسبيحهم. Because in order for it to exist, Allah needs to have remembered it. Atheists, do they remember Allah? They have to. The answer is yes. Their cells remember Allah. The only thing that doesn't remember of Allah of them is their own will. They are walking in contradiction basically. So the reality of it's dhikr. And so we need to have an active, there's passive dhikr which I was speaking about now, but there's an active part of dhikr as well in order to purify ourselves. And I want to talk about that. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. Right? Truly the purified one is the successful one. Those who seek tazkiyah, the purification of the heart and the soul. And the next ayah speaks about how do we get to tazkiyah. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى وَذَكَرَ اسْمَ رَبِّهِ فَصَلَّى. He remembers of Allah and then he performs salah. We need to make wudu, everyone's making wudu, in order to make salah. But in order to make the salah of the muhibbeen, of the muqarrabeen, those who are truly connected to Allah, we need to make tahara of the inner self as well. That's why قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. Those are successful who seek tazkiyah. But there's another ayah that says وَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Don't claim tazkiyah for yourself. Alhamdulillah, I'm fine, I don't need to go to this. If you please with yourself, you haven't done any dhikr, any self-reflection. And it's connected dhikr and fikr, self-reflection. And this is really important. One of the main problems that I want to highlight is that, especially as youth, one of the problems that we see in the community is that why are the people that are against traditional understanding of Islam to revive Al-Quran was Sunnah based on the 1400 years, why are they opposed to that? And that's because many often they see within the circles and the majority of Muslims who speak about this, they see the practices. And they see that we've lost study of the deen. And nasheeds are nice, but nasheeds are not the way of the ulama to preserve the deen. The way of the ulama is dars, transmission of knowledge, studying. And that's why when someone comes with a very false argument, many a time people can't refute them, and all they say, oh, he's a Wahhabi, oh, he's a Salafi, or even, and so that's because we aren't able to actually use that. And what we need to do is to delve into the Quran and Sunnah to see how it actually is a guide, not simply doing the dhikr but also the ilm. And we need both of these, because these are the two paths to Allah. And that was the only thing the Prophet ﷺ made dua for in the Quran. وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. You know, oh Allah, grant me an increase in knowledge. And what was the Prophet ﷺ doing in Ghar Hira? He was seeking the reality of Allah, ma'rifatullah. كان يتحنث. He was seeking the ma'rifat. And when it came, the first revelation was Iqra, right? Read in the name of your Lord, the signs and the horizons, the reality of Allah. And so when I'm talking about ilm, I'm not simply talking about the dhawahir, the outwardness of, because many people, and the youth are especially, I can quote statistics, 60% of Muslim youth have had premarital sex. That's it. 40% drink alcohol. We debating about where the feet should be, where the hands should be, but you have Muslim youth who are intoxicated with drugs and with alcohol. Where are our priorities? That is the question. And the solution is actually to see these bigger problems. And so, with regards to dhikr and with ilm, the solution to all of this is to connect to Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Not only to the outwardness, but also the inner qualities of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If you want to see Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in your dream, you have to adorn yourself, your qalb, with the qualities and sifat of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Ar-Rahma, Ar-Rahimun Yarhamumur Rahman. Those who show mercy will receive mercy. That's the first thing the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to the Sahaba. That's the first injunction. And so in order to correctly contextualize our deen in our lives, we need to start off with rahmah and with love, because these are really the beginning parts of that. And just to, before I end, just to show us the station of the Prophet ﷺ, that Rasul ﷺ is not only important in this life for us, but also in the Yawm al-Qiyamah. But this life is a mazra'ah, it's a planting, it's so that we can heal the benefits in the next life. In Sahih Muslim and in Tirmidhi, the hadith says that the Prophet ﷺ said that I will be the first person who the grave will be cleft open for. And the Prophet ﷺ in Jami' al-Saghir of Imam Suyuti, he comes out with the buraq out of his qabr. And he says, there I see the arsh of Allah and Sayyidina Musa. And he says, who was resurrected first? Was it me or Musa? And then he speaks about the view of Sayyidina Musa. And Sayyidina Musa is there. But notice, Sayyidina Musa was given a ringside seat to see the majesty and the rank of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then he sees the grave of Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar and then of the Baqi, and then of the Ma'la in Mecca, then Sayyidina Isa in Medina. And he sees all of these graves being cleft open one after the other. What is the common denominator here? The common denominator here is qurb ila Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam fil barzakh, proximity and closest to the Prophet ﷺ in the barzakh. In order to solve the problems that we have, the Ashab al-Kahf were in their cave and they slept for 300 years, but they were there making dhikr and reflecting on Allah, and the entire society changed and transformed around them. That is the solution as a basis, and spiritual activism is important. Activism is important. The last thing that I want to say is that as youth, we are in a deep crisis. And we have to realize, and all of us, we have to realize the crisis that we are in and the weight that this ummah has been given. Because we are not like other ummahs. And we don't want to be like other ummahs, like the Jews who were given the truth and turned away from the truth. And as a result, incurred the wrath of Allah, the anger of Allah. We have to make a collective tawbah, turn back to Allah, realize the truth of this deen, and take it out to people, because people are dying. The earth itself is dying. Our rivers are being poisoned. Our minds are being poisoned, and we are harming ourselves. It says, وَدَخَلَ جَنَّتَهُ in Surah Kahf وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. When there were these two people who had opposing outward manifestations of gardens. The one was a beautiful garden, the other one wasn't. And the one who had this beautiful garden said, oh, I'm better than you. And the Quran describes him as وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. He's oppressive to himself, because we are oppressing ourselves. إِنَّمَا بَغْيَكُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ. You're oppressing yourselves. And the last thing I want to say is that we need to respond to this call actively, because we don't want to be like these other people. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اسْتَجِيبُوا لِلَّهِ وَلِلرَّسُولِ إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ. Respond to the call of Allah and His Messenger to something that will bring you to life. The mafhum al-mukhalafa, the understanding here is that if we don't respond to the call of Allah, then we are dead people. We are junk people living junk lives in junk malls and filled with junk. But the solution is to have active lives, and we don't want to feel the rush of weed and cocaine and drugs and all these things, or jumping out of an aeroplane, skydiving, going 1,000 kilometers per hour to a cement floor. The real rush that we should be to feel alive is not those things. It's to become a slave of the hayy, the slave of the living that never dies. That is the solution, and dhikr is the path to that, and we need to broaden our horizon. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.